Taking a look at today's equity index futures markets. Let's look at the Russell futures as we're seeing the small caps having a nice session today, up for a third consecutive session with a late day run today. They were pretty much unchanged, outperforming all the major equity index futures markets really throughout the day, but a late day move higher has pushed the Russell futures up for a third consecutive session, up about 0.5% currently today, and coming off of the recent lows from the middle of last week, basically. And the futures market right now, 2048 is where the futures are currently trading. And I think when you look at some of the driving factors today, a lot has to do with just the rotation that we're seeing within different sectors in the market, particularly over the last week or so. And the Russell futures, the small caps, seem to be benefiting from some of that rotation as they have made up some ground relative to some of the other major equity index futures markets here the last week or so. And you're seeing a rotation into some of the small cap names that had benefited from some of the themes late last year and then come under some selling pressure earlier this year. Now we're seeing, I think, again, some reassessment of those valuations and market participants looking for potential plays there due to some underperformance. And looking at the futures market as a whole today with the equity index futures markets, the Russell futures were the best performer today, up a little over 0.5%. The NASDAQ futures had another nice session today, trying to recover some ground. Certainly they're underperforming relative to the other three major equity index futures to this point, but made up some ground today. The S&P and the Dow futures were down slightly on the session, I believe, but well off the lows of the session. So the other thing I want to point out is that when you look at the relative price action for the futures markets through the last week, the Russell has made up some ground now. It was underperforming earlier this year and really up until about a week ago, but now we're seeing the Russell futures making up some ground here and pretty much even with the S&P 500 futures as far as price action this year. So making up some ground on the S&P. And again, when you look at the overall type of return profile, the Dow futures are still the best performer for the year. The Russell and the S&P futures are basically pretty much in line, and the NASDAQ futures, even with the nice price action here recently, are still underperforming the other three major equity index futures markets in 2022.